Hello and welcome back to the educational webinar series brought to you by WeatherWorks. My name is Nathan Wiles, lead meteorologist and assistant marketing director of the company. Today we will take a look into the forensic sciences of weather and discuss a department of WeatherWorks that has been working hand in hand with both contractors and property managers for over 30 years, helping to resolve legal matters, especially related to snow and ice. Our presenter today is WeatherWorks' own Director of Forensic Services, Sherilyn Patrick. Sherilyn has been with the company for over 6 years, working as a lead meteorologist, and has spent the last several years working to expand the department. Sherilyn will be taking us through the basics of forensic meteorology and uncovering many of the benefits we offer to our friends in the field. Sherilyn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nate. Welcome, everybody. Today's presentation is going to be Weather CSI. How can a forensic meteorologist help you? So some of the goals today that we're going to go over is what exactly is forensic meteorology? What are its applications, and why would you ever need a certified past weather report? As Nate said, my name is Sherilyn Patrick. I am Director of Forensic Services. I've been with WeatherWorks since 2014, became a full-fledged forensic meteorologist back in 2016. I am a graduate of Rutgers University. That's where I got my bachelor's degree. And then I also did a master's program through Mississippi State University. So just going over some bullet points of what we're going to go through today. Again, what is forensic meteorology? Everybody thinks a meteorologist, you think future weather, maybe during an ongoing storm. What are the weather conditions right now? But also the application of meteorology is the past weather and reconstructing that. Why would you ever need weather reconstruction? We'll explain why you would need a forensic meteorologist. We can also go over how we can directly help you. So what are some issues that typically arise in the field? So many of which are slip and claim or slip and fall claims and lawsuits. We also do property damage claims. Sometimes you may have billing disputes or project delays. So we'll go over in more detail how we can help you with those. And then we'll just go over our staff here in the forensics department and how you can contact us. So first things first, what is forensic meteorology? Forensic meteorology is the process of reconstructing the weather for a certain date, time, and location. So typically this is done by a meteorologist. At a minimum, they require a bachelor's degree, but usually we like to have a little bit of training, getting familiar with the weather data, reviewing radar different products, going over satellite, and just having that experience in the field. So seeing the weather evolve in front of you and knowing what the weather conditions are across the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, the Midwest. So when you go back and reconstruct a storm, that meteorologist is not only interpreting the data, but knows how the weather evolves in that particular area. So based on all this weather data and the meteorologist's expertise, they can then set an opinion. So instead of just printing out the raw weather data that you may find online, the meteorologist actually takes that data, interprets it, and says, at this date, time, location, these were the weather conditions. So why would you ever need to retain a forensic meteorologist? By retaining that forensic meteorologist, you now have an unbiased, easy to read opinion of the actual weather conditions for the specific address. Unbiased is very important. So if you're a plaintiff or maybe you're a defendant involved in a litigation lawsuit, maybe you're a claimant, maybe you're the insured in terms of an insurance claim, you want to have that third party go back and reconstruct the weather because they're not favoring one side or the other. They give you that kind of objective weather analysis. So, and on top of going over the raw weather data and giving that expert opinion, we can go above and beyond that. So we can give that objective analysis, but we can also review any kind of additional documentation. Maybe you have photographs from the day of. Maybe you have things like snow and ice contracts that indicate that you went out on this date and you plowed 4 inches of snow. We can go over accident reports, whether they were from the property, maybe they are a EMS report, a police report. We'll actually go through and review that and see, did they talk about the weather conditions? Did the police officer describe whether it was clear Was it snowing? Was it raining? Was there visibility concerns? These are all additional details that we can glean from that type of report. And then sometimes if it's further along, maybe in litigation, or the insurance company has interviewed the person who was involved in the incident, we can actually review testimonies and see what that person said were the weather conditions, and if it's a slip and fall, what they may have slipped and fell on, where, what type of ice. If it was property damage, were they home? Did they discover it a week later? Things of that nature. So the other benefit of a forensic meteorologist is it's not just printing off weather data that you find online. You actually have an expert who can go and testify on your behalf. That's really the main difference here. So sometimes, I know it's easy, you just go online, maybe you're a couple miles away from Newark International Airport, you print out the raw weather data, you provide it to your insurance adjuster, you provide it to your attorney, and it's great, but how do you know that that weather data is accurate? How do you know that weather data is representative of where the incident took place? By having a forensic meteorologist reconstruct the weather, they can actually say with certainty at that date, time, and location, this is what happened, and they can be called to trial testimony and testify in front of a judge and jury. So just going more into detail, typically when a contractor or a property management company comes to us directly asking for, what was the weather at this date, time, and location, we produce a certified past weather report. And at a minimum, we'll do weather tables. So we'll do a daily weather table leading up to and surrounding the date. And then we'll also do an hourly weather table. So if you have a specific date and time that the incident occurred, we can show hour by hour the weather conditions leading up to and surrounding that time. Typically, we'll include parameters such as temperatures, weather conditions overall for the day or at that particular hour, and precipitation. If it winds up being related to a wintry weather event, we'll actually go into snow and sleet accumulations, ice accumulations, and any snow and ice that was already on the ground. So maybe on a particular date, there wasn't an active snow or ice storm, but there was a couple days ago. So you can actually see what the snow pile was the couple days after, if there was a mountain refreeze scenario, if there wasn't any mountain refreeze, so you can actually evaluate that. We can also go, customize the report for you. So maybe you don't need all this information. Maybe you just want to know wind speeds. Maybe you just want to know rainfall. Do you need to know visibility? We can actually go in and customize these reports specific to your incident. The best part about these tables too is that they're very easy to read. You can download weather data online, but sometimes it's very hard to read. It's in technical terms. Maybe it doesn't have all these parameters. Maybe you go on Weather Underground and it only provides temperatures. Or maybe you get an airport from a couple miles away, but it doesn't give you snow or ice details. We'll actually do that work for you so you don't need to drive yourself crazy trying to gather all these different weather sources and interpret them yourselves. So moving on, we're going to go more into detail about why you would want to hire us directly. 90% of our cases are slip and fall claims. So oftentimes a property management company, they may hear about a slip and fall because they're there. It happens during business hours, or it happens at a residential community. And the supervisor on duty hears, one of the residents slipped and fell, so they need to go out. Maybe they need to call the police, an ambulance, and they have to take down information of the person who slipped and fell to start filing a accident report. Other times, if maybe you're the snow and ice contractor, sometimes the property manager will pick up the phone, give you a call, say, hey, we had a slip and fall. When was the last time you were out here to treat? Were you supposed to come out and treat? Other times you may not hear about it until a couple weeks later when they kind of go through the process of figuring out who was the snow and ice contractor to begin with. There are other times where you may not find out about a slip and fall, whether you're a property manager or a snow and ice contractor, until years later. It may not be until it finally goes through the litigation process 2, 3, 4 years later, and they discover who was responsible. for maintaining this property. So it really can vary in terms of when you find out about a slip and fall. It could be the day of, the next day, a couple weeks later, years later. You hear about these slip and fall claims, and now it's, what do I do? So the great thing about us here at WeatherWorks is that we work for both sides. So we do work for claimants, so the person who slipped and fell or was subjected to an injury. Usually they're referred to as claimants in the insurance process, and then if it does go to litigation, they become the plaintiff. And then we also do the insureds. So for the purpose of this webinar, a lot of property managers, snow and ice contractors, residentials out there, we also work for you. So sometimes you may, like I said, hear about it the day of. Other times your insurance carrier is going to call you and say, hey, we got this slip and fall claim. We need more information. So we represent you as well. And then if it does wind up going to court, you then become a defendant. So we do both plaintiffs and defendants, claimants and insureds equally, and this also helps provide an unbiased field whenever we do the weather conditions. So as mentioned before, you may hear about a slip and fall, day of, years later, but regardless of when you do, you can request a report as soon as you like. If you want it the day of you hear about the slip and fall claim, please do. We will reconstruct the weather for you, provide an objective analysis. If it takes a couple years down the road and your attorney or your insurance carrier says, hey, we really need to figure out what the weather conditions are, you can come directly to us. You can refer your attorney or your insurance carrier to us, and we will happily go through the process and be able to construct a certified past weather report for you. So on top of just being able to reconstruct the weather, just saying, at this date, time, location, here is the temperature. Was it snowing or was it not snowing? Were there any kind of National Weather Service watches, warnings, advisories in effect? We can go above and beyond just stating here was the weather and help answer some important questions that do come up in the claims or litigation process. Was there an ongoing winter storm? This is important in some states. In New Jersey, there usually isn't a ongoing storm clause, but in other states like New York and Connecticut, there is a storm in progress clause. So if it is an ongoing event, it was not possible to, remediate a property completely of snow and ice because snow and ice is ongoing and falling. Oftentimes that does help you in your favor. Cases can go into what's called summary judgment, where it's an ongoing storm. There was no way you could have made this property safe, and the case could be essentially dismissed. But if it wasn't an ongoing storm, how recent was the last wintry weather event? Was it within a couple hours where maybe, you're busy, you're trying your best to get this property cleared. Maybe you maintain multiple properties and you're trying to go one by one through them after this big winter storm. Was there a reasonable amount of time for you to remediate the snow and ice at a given property? Or did the last wintry weather event happen days ago? Was there even any snow piles on the ground still? These are some questions that we can answer for you. Then kind of going more into detail, what were the winter weather forecasts? Was there advance notice, or maybe was this a surprise event? That can also be important to detail too, depending on what kind of incident it is. If it was a surprise event, you didn't have time to prepare, you did the best you could based on the information you had. But if there was some kind of advance notice, does that result in some liability on you? This is especially important for snow and ice contractors. Was a snowfall trigger met? If you have a particular snow and ice contract that says you only go out at 1 inch or 2 inch or something of that nature, how much actually fell that day when somebody claims to have slipped and fallen? Should you have been out there? Or were you not required to be, and therefore the liability falls on somebody else? That can be helpful as well, regardless if you're a snow and ice contractor or a property manager, answering those questions before it goes further along in the process of the claims process or litigation. Another common question, which we like to ask our clients, regardless if you're an attorney, an insurance carrier, if you are involved as a defendant, as a property manager, snow and ice contractor in the litigation, was what is the claimant saying they slipped and fell on? Sometimes you'll tell us ice. That's great, but is there any more detail? Can you tell us what type of ice? And oftentimes we get, well, why does that matter? Why does it matter what kind of ice? Ice is ice, isn't it? But there actually are two main types of ice. And it is important for us to know, because then we can actually go back and trace, where did this ice come from? So one of the types of ice is opaque or cloudy ice. This is often formed either during a wintry weather event or after a wintry weather event. Essentially, you have snow and sleet. Maybe you have freezing rain on top of it. But ultimately, that snow and sleet gets compacted down. So it can be because ice falls on top of it and it creates that hard kind of snowpack that's hard to remove off of a surface like concrete or asphalt. Other times it's a result of vehicle traffic or foot traffic. So it happens, 9 to 5 on a Wednesday. Cars are driving over a parking lot. People are walking through the parking lot, going to and from work. It actually compacts down that snow and then again makes it harder to remove. You can't just use a snow blower. You can't just easily shovel it away. You kind of got to crack at it a bit, add some de-icer to it. So is that what the claimant or the plaintiff is alleging? Or was it clear black ice? So clear black ice is what you typically fear when you're driving in the middle of the night, whether it's a freezing rain event or maybe it rained during the day, it was warm, and then all of a sudden there's a flash freeze at night. It's that ice you can't easily see or discern. So again, typically that's formed from freezing rain. It looks like it falls as a liquid. It looks like plain rain, but then as soon as it hits a cold surface, it freezes into a glaze of ice. Other times it forms from melt and refreeze scenarios. So it could have snowed a couple days ago. You got these big snow piles on the sides of the sidewalk. Maybe you have them on certain edges of the parking lot just to get them out of the way. And when temperatures go above freezing or there is sunlight, on the snowpack, it allows for melting. So you have this melting that occurs during the day. You have this liquid runoff that then goes off onto a surface. And then temperatures typically at night, they fall below freezing and it causes that liquid to freeze into that clear black ice. Again, this is all important information for us as forensic meteorologists to know, because then we can actually go back. If we need to go a week back, we'll go a week back. Maybe we do need to identify a previous wintry weather event that occurred a week ago and it's been quiet leading up to the date of incident. Maybe it was an ongoing freezing rain event and there was absolutely nothing that you could do because it was freezing rain for 12 hours straight. Every time you hit it with some salt, the rain would actually kind of dilute it and then it would freeze back up again. So you were trying your best. It was an ongoing freezing rain event, but there was no way for you to remediate that ice. These are all questions that we can answer for you, and then it can help you as well as your attorney or insurance carrier through the claims or litigation process. Moving on to another topic. So slip and falls, again, we do 90% of our cases on those, but then we can also help you with property damage claims. Whether you're a property manager and it actually does affect your buildings, or maybe you are a contractor and somebody is saying that the job you did was faulty because look, the shingle went missing or something like that. We can actually go in and see, was there any kind of severe weather events that could have caused this damage, and help you with the claims process instead of just crossing your fingers and hoping that the insurance adjuster is going to approve your claim. So certain things like wind, hail, tornadoes, lightning, heavy rain, all of those can cause structural damage and flooding issues. If they're the result of a localized thunderstorm, it may be harder to prove because there's not this widespread weather data available to help you. Hurricanes, nor'easters, those are a little bit easier because there typically are articles, at least from the news, saying that a hurricane impacted this area or a nor'easter went through this area. Look at all these widespread, wind or flooding issues that occurred across this area. Then otherwise, when you go from a localized thunderstorm, if it doesn't hit a nearby airport, you have the same issue too. You could pull data from Newark International Airport 6 miles away, but if the thunderstorm didn't go over Newark International Airport, then it almost seems like nothing happened, right? We will actually go in, we'll dig through the radar data, we'll dig through some more localized weather networks. We can go through the National Weather Service watches, warnings, advisories, forecasts. Was there a threat for thunderstorms? Was a warning issued for your area? We can actually go in, we'll plot the incident location, and we'll show you, here's the track of the thunderstorm, here were the warnings that were in effect, and based on the weather data on the ground, as well as the radar estimates, this was the wind speed that occurred. This was the maximum hail size that occurred. A tornado formed. Look at all this heavy rain that fell within a 15 to 30 minute time period. We can identify those certain weather parameters and say within a meteorological and scientific certainty, this is consistent with this type of damage. So just kind of going more into detail about property damage claims, just like when it comes to free weather data, you Google, weather data for Newark, New Jersey, and you get Newark International Airport. There are products out there that do provide sometimes wind and hail verifications. They are relatively cheap. They are pretty quick to do. You just type in an address, you type in a date range, and it spits out a report. But how accurate are those reports if it was that easy to get the data in the first place? You want to be wary of those types of reports because oftentimes they use some kind of proprietary algorithm, and they don't use all the available weather data at hand. A lot of the time they just use radar estimates. So when it comes to radar estimates, I mean, even just as forecasters here, we can see that a thunderstorm has potential to produce X amount of winds or X amount of hail, but that doesn't necessarily mean it reaches the ground. So you want to be able to have that meteorologist quality control the data, look at ground truth observations before coming up with this analysis. So if you try and submit this hail algorithm to your insurance carrier, again, you have to cross your fingers and hope that it holds, because there's no meteorologist behind it. There's nobody who can come to testify or talk on behalf for you to the insurance company and say, yeah, these were the weather conditions at this date, time, and location at this exact property. You're kind of just hoping that it's right. And, just experience in the field doing a lot of hail and wind claims, almost half the time these dates are erroneous. They're wrong. So having a meteorologist actually do the legwork for you will solidify that insurance claim and make sure that, if you did have damage at your property, you get paid appropriately. Other things that we can do is essentially determine tornado tracks. We can say within a certainty that this wind speed occurred, this hail size occurred. Just an example on this PowerPoint here, we were able to help a client. There was a tornado that went through while they were building a new residential community near a train station. We were actually able to pull the weather data up. We looked at all the tornado reports, we looked at the wind reports, and we were able to track this tornado, what it would have been if you connected all the points together, and it did actually go through the property. So being able to not even just document that, hey, this tornado report occurred 5 miles away, we can actually track the tornado and say with certainty, yes, the tornado went through your property and you would have sustained damage. Same thing with hail. It's not just, hail occurred of greater than 1 inch 6 miles away. It's look at all these hail observations based on the radar, based on these ground conditions. We can say within a meteorological and scientific certainty that 1¼ inch hail would have impacted the property at this particular address. So again, it's not just pulling together raw data from nearby. It's we can give you an opinion at your actual property that this particular wind speed or hail size, a tornado, flooding rains of this amount occurred here. I know we talked about how you want to be careful of certain free reports or cheap reports that you can find online that involve algorithms. I don't want to completely knock a lot of these reports. There is one particular report that we do utilize even ourselves here in the forensic department, and that is the CoreLogic StrikeNet data. This is through Vasala. They provide nearly site-specific lightning strike data. This is legitimate data. And this is data that we even need to reconstruct if you have a lightning claim. So say, lightning struck and it caused a massive power outage, maybe it caused a fire, and you need to prove that to your insurance carrier that this fire was as a result of an act of God. How do you prove that? So we actually go in, we'll download this Lightning Vasala data. They do plot it for you, but we can actually take that data, plot it, overlay it on Google Earth, and we can add more detail. So not just here were the lightning strikes, but here was the exact thunderstorm that went through, and overlay that thunderstorm with the lightning strike data with the property. Then we'll go in and say, was there advance notice of this thunderstorm and for how long? Were there any kind of warnings or special weather statements on it saying that frequent lightning was occurring? These are all things that we can reconstruct, put together in an easy to read report. And then all you got to do is zip it off to your insurance carrier and easy peasy. You don't need to do that legwork. Let us do that legwork, and it'll be a worthwhile report to ensure and expedite the insurance claim process. Lastly, and it's not something we do frequently, but it is something that has come up. There are oddball requests or claims that come in not as a result of property damage, not as a result of personal injury, but sometimes you may have billing disputes, or you have project delays, and that causes a strife with your client, or the person you hired to do the work. These are things that we can also go in, make site-specific, reconstruct the weather, and help resolve those issues so that it doesn't become too big of a project, where it goes into litigation, it goes on for years just so that you can get paid or make sure you're paying a fair amount. So some examples include, maybe you have a project. You say it's going to take about 90 days to do, but all of a sudden, 45 of those 90 days are rain dates, and now it's delaying the actual project finish. And you may be a roofer, maybe you're building a house from scratch, maybe you're doing some pavement work, and your client is not very happy that it's taking more than 90 days, and is asking why. You told me 90 days. I do not want to pay you because you couldn't do the job in 90 days. How do you prove that? Well, it rained half the time. There was no way for me to complete this project on time. You can come to us and say, hey, we have this issue. Here is where we were doing work, from this time period. We know it rained half the time, but we need to be able to prove to our client that it did. Can you reconstruct the weather for this particular site? And we'll say absolutely. So we'll actually go in, and we'll review each date, figure out, how much rain fell. If you need to know if certain amount of rain fell within a certain time period, maybe you work 7 to 3 each day. We can do that too. So not just calendar day, we can actually go into your work hours and say, yes, it rained during this time period. Here's how much, and then produce a report showing, X amount of days there was rainfall. This is how much rain fell each day. This is how much rain fell during the entire period. And then you can present that to your client, and let them know that, hey, we did have issues. Here's an unbiased report showing that. Give us a break. We promise we'll get the project done. And hopefully that results in an understanding. There are other incidents too, where maybe you're a snow and ice contractor and you have certain stipulations within your contract. Maybe you have a threshold. So if a seasonal total goes above a certain amount, it results in a surcharge. Maybe if it snows more than X amount in a month, or for a number of days in a month, you have an additional surcharge. It snows for more than 12 hours straight, and you and your crew need to be out there remediating any snow and ice for more than 12 hours. That results in a surcharge. And vice versa, as a property manager, you want to make sure that if you're looking at an invoice and you're being charged a surcharge, that that surcharge applied, that actual weather condition stipulated in the contract did occur. We can go more into detail with that. Of course, we have our certified snowfall totals. That does help remediate any snow and ice invoicing disputes. But if you have more detailed stipulations in your contract that go above and beyond what our certified snowfall totals provide, you can hire one of us to go more into detail. Certified snowfall totals are on a zip code basis. We can go in and make it on a property basis. Certified snowfall totals are on a per storm basis. We can go in and go by calendar day. We can even go hour by hour, how much snow fell per hour, how much of it was snow, how much of it was sleet, when did the freezing rains start. These are all details that we can go above and beyond and slap our certification on it. You'll actually have a meteorologist there, so you can call and ask us questions. And again, if it does unfortunately go to litigation, you can present that report and we'll be here, available for deposition or trial testimony. So here we just have a bit more in terms of examples and of some project delay and billing disputes that we've done. Again, it's a lot of tables, but they're a lot easier to read than trying to download weather data yourself, or maybe you're trying to compile the data from the Certified Snowfall Total website. So we can actually go in and show how much fell per day, how much of it was liquid precipitation. So if you took that snow, sleet, and ice and melted it down, what is the liquid equivalent as if it fell as rain? How much snow and sleet fell per day? How much of it was ice, the ice accretion box? And then we can even total it out by month, and then we can even total it out, say you're looking for an entire winter season, we can let you know exactly how much fell, from October 1st to April 30th. We can show you that as well. Other times, again, project delay where it involves rainfall. Not only will we tell you how many days it rained or how much rain fell during that particular time period, but what's the average? Is this normal? Is it abnormal? Was it below normal? Helpful for both sides to figure out, was this an anomalous event and there was nothing we could do about it? Or is this a typical occurrence and therefore, maybe the project should have been longer than it should have been? We'll actually go in and detail that out for a specific town or a specific address and, provide those details in an easy to read format. So I hope that was all helpful. Realize that we're not just here for you for the future and present, we're also here for you in the past. I know we went over essentially different issues that may arise, as a contractor, as a property manager, residential service, whether it be a slip and fall, property damage, billing dispute. Really, anytime you need us, we're here. It may sound silly to you, but it's not silly to us, and we are here for you. Anytime something happens in the past, I guarantee you, we can reconstruct it and help you with your issue. So, us here in the forensic meteorology department, there's about 5 of us here that are forensic meteorologists or working to become forensic meteorologists. So, of course, we have our CEO and president, Frank Lombardo. I know I talked earlier in the presentation that we like to go above and beyond just having a bachelor's degree. So there are certifications that you can get to help bolster yourself as a forensic meteorology expert. So Frank Lombardo does have the Certified Consulting Meteorologist designation. That's through the American Meteorological Society. Usually once you have about 10 years of experience and you've gone to trial testimony before, you can go for this certification, and it's just like an extra boost. So that when you do go to trial testimony, when you do get deposed, it does help solidify your credentials. Then we have our senior forensic meteorologist, Tommy Else. Again, he also has a certified consulting meteorologist designation, but then he also has his advanced snow manager designation through CIMA. So Tommy is especially helpful if you need more details regarding snow and ice remediation. He can actually go in and comment on de-icer and proper snow and ice removal techniques advance notice, things of that nature to help essentially amplify the report beyond just the objective weather analysis. Then, of course, myself, I'm director of the Forensic Services department here. I know I said earlier, Master of Science in Applied Meteorology. I am working toward getting some additional courses in snow and ice remediation. Then we also have forensic meteorologist Zachary Chabala, who is in line. He has a couple years of experience, got a couple more to go, but he's in line to get his certified consulting meteorologist designation as well. He is also in the process of taking some snow and ice remediation courses. And then we also have our forensic coordinator, Megan McCarthy. She is in the process of training to become a forensic meteorologist and is actually taking courses in emergency management. So things like property damage and of that nature, she'll have that kind of background, FEMA background, hurricanes, things of that nature to really kind of talk more about severe weather and wintry weather. And of course, here at WeatherWorks, we are here for you. So if you do have any additional questions or concerns, want to talk more about forensic meteorology, maybe you have a claim or case pending, feel free to give me a call, 908-850-8600. Just go through the prompts to the Forensic Meteorology Department. Or you can shoot me an email at Sherilyn Patrick at weatherworksinc.com. And then if you do have specific questions regarding pricing, samples of our reports, things of that nature, you can just reach out to us here at the Forensics Department, forensics@weatherworksinc.com. We really appreciate you tuning in to this webinar, and we hope you have a happy and safe winter season, and take care.